Welcome to our deep dive into the fascinating world of Indo-European languages. We'll be looking at an article from Lingualid.com. It's called Discover the Fascinating World of Indo-European Languages. We're going to uncover the origins and spread of this massive language family. It's pretty incredible how many languages are connected from, English to Farsi to Hindi. We're going to be looking at how these connections impact history and culture today.
Yeah, it really is. It's a journey that takes us back thousands of years to uncover this linguistic family tree that connects almost half of the world's population.
Okay, so to kind of start our journey, let's go back to the late 1700s with William Jones, a British judge in India. And Jones was kind of a language buff, and while working in India, he started to notice some really interesting similarities between Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek.
Right.
Now, on the surface, these languages, they seem completely different, but Jones's observations, they sparked a whole new field of study, historical linguistics.
Yeah, so that's the study of how languages evolve over time.
Yeah.
And what's so fascinating is that, before Jones, people hadn't really considered these deep historical connections between languages.
Right.
So his work was pretty revolutionary. It led to this identification of the Indo-European language family, which again is massive.
Yeah.
It encompasses over 445 living languages,
Wow.
spoken by almost half the world's population.
Really?
Yeah. It's mind-boggling to think about, billions of people across the globe connected by this ancient linguistic thread.
It's like discovering this hidden network, right, that links people from all walks of life
Yes,
across
sir.
continents throughout history.
That's absolutely
They're
it.
pretty cool. So this family, it has branches, right, like a giant oak tree.
Yeah. You can think of it like that. We've got the Germanic, Italic, Slavic, Indo-Iranian, Celtic branches, and even some extinct branches like Anatolian and Tokurian.
Wow. So many branches.
Huge.
It is a lot of branches. The article gives this great example, to kind of illustrate this. English, German, Dutch, and Yiddish all descended from this common ancestor called Common Germanic.
Right.
So it's kind of like, we're able to look back in time and see how these languages, they diverged.
Yeah.
And developed their own unique characteristics.
Precisely, and that's where this concept of Proto-Indo-European comes in. It's like the trunk of that massive tree we were just talking about,
Yeah.
the hypothetical ancestor of all the Indo-European languages.
Right. So how do linguists go about reconstructing a language that no one speaks anymore? I mean, they don't have time-traveling dictionaries or anything, do they?
No time-traveling dictionaries, unfortunately. That's where the real detective work comes in.
Okay.
Linguists compare the descendants of Proto-Indo-European, they're looking for patterns and sound changes, vocabulary, grammar. For example, by looking at how words for father or son have changed in different Indo-European languages, you can kind of start to get an idea of what that original word might have been.
So they're piecing together clues from the languages we speak today to try to understand the language of the past.
Exactly. And while we can't perfectly reconstruct Proto-Indo-European, we've learned some fascinating things about it.
Okay. What kind of things?
Like, it seems to have had this, very complex sound system
Okay.
and something called a blout.
A blout.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's basically a system of vowel changes within words.
Oh, okay. Can you give me an example of a blout?
Sure, yeah. Think of like the English verb sing, sang, sung.
Okay.
You see how the vowel changes? That change in the vowel is a direct inheritance from Proto-Indo-European ablaut system.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's a really great example of how these ancient linguistic features, they still echo in English today.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. It makes you kind of think about the journey those words have taken through time.
Mm.
Okay, how do we know, where this Proto-Indo-European language originated? Was there a single place where it all began?
That is like the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's one that has generated a lot of debate amongst linguists and archaeologists.
Of course, yeah.
But,
What are some of the leading theories?
well, the most widely accepted theory is called the Kurgan hypothesis.
Okay.
It places the Indo-European homeland in the Pontic-Caspian Steppe region,
Okay.
which is, north of the Black Sea.
Okay.
And it links the Proto-Indo-European speakers to the Yamnaya culture.
Yamnaya.
Yeah, Yamnaya, around 6,000 years ago.
Okay. So we're talking about, a nomadic horse-herding culture kind of spreading their language as they migrated across these vast territories. Sounds almost like something out of a movie.
It does have a certain kind of epic quality to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there's some really fascinating evidence to support this theory. Like, for example, genetic studies have shown this prevalence of the Y DNA haplogroup R1A.
Okay, hold on. So you're saying we can use genetics to trace the movement of language?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
This specific genetic marker links populations from Europe to India to parts of Central Asia, and it's particularly strong in areas that are associated with the Yamnaya culture.
Okay.
So, this genetic evidence combined with, the linguistic data kind of paints this really compelling picture of how this language family might have spread.
So genetics is telling the same story as linguistics.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
really incredible.
It is. But,
Yeah.
I mean, was it just migration? I imagine there were other factors involved too, right?
Absolutely. The spread of Indo-European languages, it likely wasn't just about migration. It probably involved this complex mix of conquest, trade, cultural exchange happening, over thousands of years. It's like this giant puzzle, right? With pieces scattered across continents and through time.
And we're still feeling the effects of this massive linguistic and cultural expansion today.
We really are. But, before we move on, I think it's worth taking a moment to kind of appreciate how groundbreaking the Kurgan hypothesis is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about using linguistics and genetics to reconstruct events that happened thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're peering into a time machine and uncovering the secrets of our ancient past.
You're right. It is absolutely amazing what we can learn from combining, different fields of study.
It is.
It's very cool. Okay, now I'm really curious to hear more about how this ancient language family has shaped the world we live in today.
Let's do it.
So let's dive into that.
Okay.
Okay, so we've traced the origins of the Indo-European language family back thousands of years.
We have.
Now let's fast forward to today. What are some ways that this ancient family tree is still impacting the world we live in?
Well, for one, just the sheer number of speakers. I mean, almost half the world's population speaks an Indo-European language.
That's true.
It's a testament to the lasting impact that these languages have had on a global scale.
Yeah, it's not just about numbers, though, right?
Yeah.
It's about the influence they've had,
Right.
on the development of cultures and civilization.
Absolutely. Think about it. So much of our literature, our philosophy, our scientific thought, has roots in Indo-European languages.
Yeah.
From, the ancient Greek philosophers to the Renaissance thinkers to, even the modern scientific revolution.
Right.
These languages have been the vehicles for the exchange of ideas that have shaped human history.
It's amazing to think about, how these languages have carried knowledge and ideas across continents and through time.
It really is.
And the article points out that the influence extends beyond just intellectual pursuits, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of woven into the fabric of our daily lives.
Yeah, for sure. Take, for example, like the legal and political systems of many countries around the world.
Okay.
They often have roots in Roman law, which itself is a product of the Indo-European language family.
Right.
Or look at the spread of democracy. The very word democracy comes from ancient Greek,
Wow, yeah.
which is an Indo-European language.
I never thought about it that way.
It's really fascinating,
It's like we're surrounded by the legacy of these languages without even realizing it.
Exactly. And then, you've got this really fascinating phenomenon of borrowed words.
Right.
English, for example, it's kind of like a linguistic melting pot.
Yeah.
It's got words borrowed from Latin, French, Spanish, Italian, countless other Indo-European languages.
That's why English vocabulary can feel so vast sometimes.
It's huge.
A little overwhelming.
Yeah,
But that's also what makes it so rich and expressive, right?
exactly. And it highlights the fact that languages are constantly evolving and influencing each other.
Right. It's like this giant tapestry woven together from these threads of, different languages and cultures.
Absolutely. It's beautiful.
But, I mean, can studying these linguistic connections actually tell us anything about history?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. By analyzing the changes in language over time, we can reconstruct ancient migrations, trade routes, cultural interactions, even social structure.
Really? So it's like using language as a time machine.
Exactly. It's pretty incredible.
Can you give me a specific example of how that works?
Sure. Take the fact that Proto-Indo-European is estimated to have been spoken around the same time as the invention of the wheel and axle.
Oh,
This suggests that the original speakers were, likely pastoral people, herders, they migrated with their livestock.
okay.
And we can even glean some insights into their social structure.
Really?
The fact that they had specific words for like king and chieftain suggests a hierarchical society.
So we can learn about, the lives of people who lived thousands of years ago just by studying word origins and grammar.
Exactly. It's amazing.
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
And, I mean, The discoveries don't stop there, right?
Oh, they don't. Some scholars have even attempted to reconstruct the mythology and belief systems of the original Proto-Indo-European speakers.
Wait, hold on. You're saying we can reconstruct ancient myths by studying language?
It's possible. It's a very complex
I
process.
bet, yeah.
But, the basic idea is to look for these recurring patterns and shared themes in the myths and legends of different Indo-European cultures.
Okay.
Like, for example, the sky god, often associated with thunder and lightning, he's a very common figure in Indo-European mythologies.
Okay.
You see him in Zeus of the Greeks, Jupiter of the Romans, Thor of the Norse, and Diaspatar in the Vedic tradition of ancient India.
So these seemingly disparate cultures, they might have shared a common set of myths and beliefs that were passed down through their languages.
It's a fascinating possibility.
It is.
And it really speaks to these deep connections that exist between these cultures, connections that are often hidden beneath, layers of time and linguistic change.
It really makes you wonder, what other secrets are encoded in the languages we speak today?
That's a great question.
It is, yeah.
And it's one that, linguists and historians are constantly grappling with.
Of course.
The study of language is an ongoing journey of discovery.
Yeah.
And there are still so many mysteries waiting to be uncovered.
It's incredible to think that we can learn so much about history, about culture, about ourselves,
Right.
even through the study of language.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But before we get too carried away with the philosophical implications, let's get back to our article from lingualid.com
Right.
and the main points here. Okay,
Yes.
so let's do a quick recap. We've talked about the origins of the Indo-European language family,
Right.
the impact of these languages on global culture,
Yep.
and how linguistic analysis can actually help us understand the past. What else is there?
Well, I think it's important to emphasize that the story of Indo-European languages is not over.
Right.
These languages, they continue to evolve and adapt to the changing world around us.
Of course.
They're constantly interacting with each other, with other language families,
Okay.
creating new forms of expression
Yeah.
and just reflecting the dynamic nature of human culture.
So the Indo-European language family is not just a relic of the past.
Yeah.
It's a living, breathing entity that continues to shape our world.
Exactly.
Okay. And that brings us to a really crucial point.
What's that?
I mean, what can we learn from all of this?
Yeah.
Why should anyone care about, the history of a language family that originated thousands of years ago?
That's a great question.
What's the takeaway for our listeners?
Well, for one, I think it gives us a sense of perspective.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're all part of a much larger story,
Right.
a human story that transcends borders and languages.
It's a reminder of our shared heritage.
Yeah, actually.
Even if we speak different languages
Yeah.
and come from different parts of the world.
It's fascinating.
It is. And it also highlights, the power of language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Language is not just a tool for communication.
No, it's not.
It's a window into the human mind,
It is.
a reflection of our history, a source of creativity and innovation.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a reminder that language is much more than just words, right?
Absolutely.
It's a fundamental part of what makes us human.
Exactly. And by understanding, the history and evolution of languages, I think we can gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity and richness of human culture.
And not just that, but also just the sheer kind of intellectual wonder of it all, right?
Yeah.
Reconstructing ancient languages, tracing their spread across continents, uncovering secrets encoded in their grammar and vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the power of human curiosity and ingenuity.
I agree.
It's really inspiring to think about what we can learn about ourselves and our world through the study of language.
It is. And, it's a field that's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
New discoveries are being made all the time.
So while we've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
this is really just the beginning of the journey.
Exactly. The world of Indo-European languages is vast and endlessly fascinating. And who knows what other mysteries are out there waiting to be uncovered,
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Does it?
But before we wrap things up, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners? Any final thoughts or recommendations?
Well, I think, the most important thing is to encourage continued exploration.
Okay.
If you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend checking out the full article on lingualid.com. It's a great starting point for further research. And who knows, maybe this deep dive will inspire you to, delve into a specific Indo-European language.
Right.
Or even take up linguistics as a hobby. Who knows?
That's a great suggestion. Learning another language can be a really rewarding experience.
It can.
And it can definitely deepen your understanding of, the concepts we've been discussing today.
Yeah, for sure. And even if you don't become a fluent speaker, just understanding, the basic principles of language evolution can open up a whole new way of looking at the world.
Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive, let's kind of summarize the key takeaways for our listeners.
Okay.
We started with William Jones, a British judge in India,
Right.
who noticed these striking similarities between Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek.
Yeah. Those observations were key.
His observations sparked the field of historical linguistics, leading to the identification of the Indo-European language family, which encompasses, over 445 living languages spoken by nearly half the world's population.
It's mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. We explored the concept of Proto-Indo-European,
Right.
the hypothetical ancestor of all Indo-European languages.
Yeah.
And we talked about how linguists reconstruct this ancient language by comparing its descendants, looking for patterns in sound changes and grammar.
The detective work.
Right. We also delved into the Kurgan hypothesis,
Yeah.
which suggests that the Indo-European homeland was located in the Pontic-Caspian Steppe region.
Right.
And we talked about how genetic evidence supports this theory.
It's really compelling.
And finally, we discussed the lasting impact of Indo-European languages on global culture and history,
Yeah.
from literature and philosophy to political systems and legal codes. We also touched on the fascinating phenomenon of borrowed words and how these words reflect the dynamic interplay between languages.
A lot of information.
I think it's safe to say we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But most importantly, I hope that this deep dive has inspired you to think about language in a new way.
That's what we were hoping for.
Language is much more than just a means of communication, right?
Absolutely.
It's a reflection of who we are, where we come from, and what we believe in.
And it's something we should all cherish and explore.
Well said. Thank you for guiding us through this fascinating world of linguistic discovery.
It's been my pleasure.
I know I've learned a lot today.
Me too.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next time.
It's amazing to think about how much information is kind of encoded in the languages we speak.
Yeah, it really is. It's like each word is this little time capsule carrying these traces of ancient migrations, cultural exchanges,
Right.
even the thoughts and beliefs of our ancestors,
We've been on quite a journey today, starting with, a British judge in India,
Right.
noticing these similarities between Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek.
Yeah.
And that simple observation, it opened up this whole new world of understanding about how languages evolve, how they're connected,
Right.
across vast stretches of time and geography.
It really is incredible.
It is.
The power of observation,
And from that initial spark, we've kind of explored this vastness of the Indo-European language family.
Yeah, a family that includes hundreds of languages spoken by nearly half of the world's population.
Yeah, it really highlights how interconnected we are as humans, even if we speak different languages
Exactly.
and live in different parts of the world.
It's a beautiful thing,
It is.
to think about.
And it's not just about the historical connections, right?
Yeah.
The Indo-European language family, it continues to shape our world today, influencing everything from literature and science to politics and law.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about the English language, for instance.
Okay.
It's this blend of Germanic roots with influences from Latin, French, Greek, and countless other Indo-European languages.
It's like a linguistic tapestry.
Right, with threads from all these different cultures woven together.
Exactly. And that tapestry is still being woven, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Languages continue to evolve. They reflect the changing world around us.
Right.
They adapt to new technologies. They incorporate new ideas and even create new ways of thinking.
It's amazing.
It is. So while our deep dive into Indo-European languages is coming to an end, the exploration of language and its impact on our world never really stops.
It's a lifelong journey,
It is.
There are still so many mysteries to unravel, so many connections to discover.
Right.
And every new insight into language gives us, a deeper understanding of ourselves, our history, and our place in the world.
It's a reminder that language is more than just a means of communication, right?
It is. It's a reflection of who we are,
Yeah.
where we come from,
Yeah.
and what we believe in.
It's a source of creativity, innovation, and connection. And it's something we should all cherish and explore.
Well said. Thank you for guiding us through this fascinating world of linguistic discovery.
Of course. I've learned a lot today.
I'm glad to hear that. It's been my pleasure.
And I hope our listeners have been inspired to, delve deeper into the world of language,
You
who knows what linguistic treasures they might uncover.
Exactly. And if any of our listeners are, feeling inspired to continue their exploration, I highly recommend checking out the full article from lingualid.com that we've been discussing today.
Okay.
It's packed with even more fascinating insights into the Indo-European language family.
And for those who really want to dive deep,
Right.
consider picking up a book on historical linguistics, or even start to learn a new Indo-European language.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
The more you explore, the more you'll realize just how amazing and complex language really is.
I agree.
So to wrap things up, we just want to thank everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Indo-European languages. We hope you enjoyed the journey as much as we have.
Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep exploring the fascinating world of language.
That's a perfect note to end on. Goodbye, everyone, and happy exploring.